All right, so you should have taken your dividing with decimals strategy notes. Now let's do some different practice problems to try these strategies out. So up in the top corner, we're going to write try it. Just to remind you when you look back through your notes that these are example problems that you can look back on. I'm going to box that better. There we go. All right, and we're going to do 4 different practice problems on this page. So sometimes it helps me to think ahead about the space I've got. I'm just going to split this page up into fourths so that I've got room to write my 4 problems. And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and write the problems in so that we can go back and solve them. Problem number 1 is asking us to do 51 and 63 hundredths divided by 3 tenths. Problem number 2 is asking us to divide 17 divided by 0 and 4 hundredths. Problem number 3 is asking us to divide, I'm going to move it down a line so we've got a little more space. Problem number 3 is asking us to divide 17 and 6 tenths divided by 8. And problem number 4 is asking us to divide 522 divided by 1 and 5 tenths. All right, so those are the 4 problems that I'm going to be modeling today. I'm going to encourage you to work with me instead of working ahead because I want to show you these strategies. You'll have an opportunity to do your own work when you get to your fluency or your IXL practice. All right, let's start with problem number 1. In our notes, we said first, because I see division and I see decimals, I need to check my divisor. I'm looking to see if there are any decimal numbers. And sure enough, 3 tenths is a decimal. So I'm going to bounce that decimal out by multiplying by powers of 10. It's only going to take 1 10 to bounce that decimal out. Since I did that to my divisor, I'm going to come over here and do the same thing to my dividend. Now, instead of solving the problem 51 and 63 hundredths divided by 3 tenths, I'm going to be solving this new problem. 516 and 3 tenths divided by 3. All right, my next step is to set it up long division style. 516.3, make sure I've got all the right digits, divided by 3. And I see I have a decimal in my divisor, or my dividend still, so I'm just going to bring it straight up into my quotient space. So there it is. If I had room, I would do another line space, but I'm worried I'm going to run out of room. All right, now I'm ready to divide like usual. I'm going to set up my table of multiples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go all the way up here. Times 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. All right, ready to do our long division. I did all the decimal work, ready to just divide. 5 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract and bring down the next digit. Now I'm working with 21. 21 divided by 3, looking at my table, is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract and bring down my next digit. Now I'm working with 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract. That gives me 0. And bring down my next digit. And now I'm working with 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So I get a final answer of 172 and 1 tenth. So now let's check out problem number 2. We're going to use the same list of steps. First, I'm going to check out my divisor to see if I have a decimal. Sure enough, I have a decimal. I have 0 and 4/100ths. So I'm going to need to bounce that decimal out by multiplying by powers of 10. 1, 2. It takes me 2 decimal jumps to bounce it out. So I'm going to go over to my divisor. Oh no, I was in my divisor. Now I've got my decimal bounced out. I'm going to be working with 4. When I look at my dividend, I have 17. I don't have a decimal point, so I'm going to do just like I would have done before. I'm going to think about my number, and I'm going to write it above so I have a little more workspace. My decimal point is at the end, just like the period at the end of a sentence, and I need 2 decimal jumps. 1, 2. There's my new decimal, and I can fill those empty place value spaces with 0. So now, instead of dividing 17 by 4/100ths, my new problem is going to be 1,700 divided by 4. Both of these division problems will have the same answer. All right, I can set it up. I have 1,700 divided by 4. I can build my table of multiples for 4 times 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I just realized I skipped a step because this problem doesn't need it. Look at this final problem we ended up with. Now, normally in my notes, I would need to do this step where I bring the decimal point straight up into the quotient space. But look, when I multiplied by powers of 10 to get the decimal out of my divisor, I ended up without having a decimal in the problem I'm going to solve. So I don't need to bring the decimal point straight up. This problem doesn't have one. All right, back into dividing. I have 1 divided by 4. That's 0. Can't do it. Bring down my 1, or subtract and I get 1. Now I'm going to bring down my 7. 17 divided by 4. Oh dear, that made me realize I didn't finish my table of multiples. I better finish that up. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36. There we go. Now I can look for my table of multiples. If I've got 17, I can make 4 groups. Let me write that a little better. 4 times 4 is 16. Do my subtracting, and I've got 1 left over. Bring down my next digit, which is a 0. I've got 10 divided by 4. I'm going to be able to make 2 groups. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract that, and I've got 2. Bring down my last digit, which is another 0. 20 divided by 4 gives me exactly 5 groups. 5 times 4 is 20. You'll notice as a 5th grader that most of your decimal problems won't have a remainder. All right, which gives me a final answer of 425. All right, let's keep going. Moving on to problem 3. My first job is to check out my divisor and see if I have a decimal. Now, when I look at this number, I realize there is no decimal. So I don't need to multiply by powers of 10 at all. I'm not multiplying to bounce a decimal point out of my divisor, which means I don't need to multiply to bounce a decimal point out of my dividend. I can just go ahead and set up the problem. 17 6/10 divided by 8. Now I set up the problem like long division, and I'm going to check for decimals, and I see I still have a decimal on the inside in my dividend, so I'll still need to bring that straight up into my quotient space. Now I'm ready to divide like usual, so I'll go ahead and set up my table of multiples. I'm going to write it backwards this time so I can see where to start it so I don't run out of space. There we go. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. All right, 1 divided by 8, 0. I can't make any groups. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract it away and bring down my next digit. Now I'm working with 17. My closest multiple is 16, which means I can make 2 groups. 2 times 8 is 16. That gives me 1. Bring down my next digit. Notice I'm just working around my decimal point. It's not stressing me. I already put it in the answer. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 2 times 8 is 16. And I'm done. My answer is 2 2/10. And then for our last problem, this one looks harder because I've got a bigger, looks like I've got a bigger number in my divisor, but I'm still going to use all my same steps. So first I'm going to check my divisor. Do I have a decimal number? Yes, I do. Since I have a decimal in my divisor, I've got to multiply by powers of 10. All right, 1 jump there, and I can see up here in my dividend, I'm going to need to show my decimal point and multiply by 1 power of 10 jump. Since I've got an empty space, I'm going to fill it in with a 0. And the new problem that I am going to be doing is 5,220 divided by 15. All right, now that I've done that, I can set it up standard algorithm style. And then I'm going to ask myself, is there a decimal inside my division box, inside where the dividend is? Since there's no decimal there, I don't need to stress over that. I'm just going to set up my table of multiples. For this one, I need multiples of 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so I've got 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120, 135. All right, now I can do my dividing. 5 divided by 15, that's a 0. I don't have enough. 0 times 15 is 0. Subtract it away. I still have 5. Bring down my next digit, which is a 2. 52. Looking at my table of multiples, I'm going to use 3. 3 times 15, I can see right here, is 45. Do my subtracting. I'm going to have to borrow. 12 minus 5 is 7. 4 minus 4 is 0. And I can bring down my next digit, which is a 2. Now I'm doing 72 divided by 15. Looking down my list, I think 60 is going to have to be the closest I can get. 4 times 15 is 60. Do some subtracting. 2 minus 0 is 2. 7 minus 6 is 1. And I can bring down my last digit. I've got 120. And looking here at my list, perfect. 8 times 15 is 120, so I can make 8 groups. 8 times 15 is 120. Subtract it away, 0. I've got a final answer of 348. So whether I'm dividing 522 divided by 1 5/10 or 5,220 divided by 15, I'm going to get the same answer of 348. Thanks for doing these practice problems with me. Go ahead and move on to the next task in your module.